the majority of the parables of the Lord Jesus, his teachings through stories, appeal to everyone. All of us can see ourselves in these stories. But there's a parable that he told, which he directed to a specific group of people. And he himself said which group was that. You can read this parable in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, from verse 9. He said, also he spoke this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. You can see that the aim of this parable, of the Lord Jesus in this parable, is this group of people who tend to trust in themselves and they believe they are righteous. And because they believe they are righteous, more righteous than others, then they despise the other people. They think that they are better than the others, more righteous. But they are convinced that they are right because they believe in their own righteousness. And before speaking about the parable itself, it's interesting that the Lord Jesus direct this parable to this specific group of people, because if he took this opportunity, if he took this time and prepared this story to this group of people in specific, it's because these people, first of all, exist, and unfortunately, they are not few. And who knows, through this story, they can see where they are getting it wrong. Because as I just said, because they believe they are righteous, they are not prepared to admit any mistake. And these are the people, and I met some, not because me or any human being is exempt to not fit into this parable. I believe all of us at some point, we believed that we were righteous, but we were being unrighteous. We thought we were right, but we were wrong. We can all relate to it. But many make out of this a lifestyle. It's not something that happens time to time. It's who they are, their personality. And maybe you have met people like this. I know people like this. People who cannot, in no way, in no shape or form, see their own mistakes. They're specialists in seeing others' mistakes. They even have a skill to register them, to hold them. They have a great memory in regards to others' mistakes. However, they can't see their own. There's always an excuse to their mistakes, but not to the others. Usually, they are relentless. People who have a great sense of justice, but who, interestingly, they don't apply this sense of justice to their own mistakes because they don't see them. So to coexist with someone like this is very hard. Usually they don't keep a job for a long time. Usually they don't stay there for a long time because whether in a business, in a job, in church, in a group of people, in a team, wherever they join, they can be very pleasant at first, but soon they start to find the other's mistakes. And the condition for them to remain there, everybody must change because of them. Because that place is terrible, is contaminated. Right? and they were the best thing that could happen to that place. But as nobody hears them, nobody pays attention to their advice, their guidance, then they start to hold grudges towards the others. So, if they can change that place according to their point of view, then they get out of that place and blaming others because the mistakes were not with them. So they cannot stay in a place for a long time, in a church. They cannot keep a relationship for a long time. And if they do, for this person to remain in this relationship, the other person must annul themselves. The husband or wife, they must annul themselves, which means accept all the nonsense to keep the relationship, to pretend that they don't see the problem, because the other person is unbearable. But perhaps because of a divine gift, the partner can stand the other and they have a patience that is beyond normal. So I'm talking about this because maybe you live with someone like this, or you are this kind of person who finds it easy to absorb others' mistakes, but you finding it so hard to see your own. In the parable, Jesus says, two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. So Jesus makes this contrast. The Pharisee was the discipline of the religion, fervently disciplined. And the tax collector used to charge others taxes, usually a Jew hired by Rome who collected taxes from the people, the Jewish people. And Rome worked like this. If you pay what is mine, whatever is extra, it's your problem. I won't see it as long as you pay what Rome demands. So the tax collectors were not only hated because they worked for Rome, but also because often they demanded extra taxes from the people. So there were a class of people who were very rated. Jesus was severely criticized by walking with tax collectors. Matthew, one of his disciples, was a tax collector. So Jesus speaks of a story of a Pharisee, religious, and a tax collector, the two extremes of the society. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. So both went to the temple. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. God. The original text, by the way, says that he prayed from him to himself. This is interesting. He prayed from him to him. He thought that he was speaking to God, but he was God himself in his mind. That is why Jesus said that he prayed thus with himself. God was not hearing his prayer. So what did he say? God, I thank you that I'm not like the other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. He even pointed his finger to the tax collector who was there with him in the temple. I fast twice a week and I give tithes of all that I possess. So the man went to pray, to praise himself. He went to the temple to praise himself. I give thanks to God that I'm not a sinner like the others. As I said, the person does not have sense. They can see how ridiculous they sound in this own justice of theirs, that they plead about themselves. However, they are there, in the temple. And the text goes on. Jesus goes on saying, and the tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Well, all of us, we can draw lessons from this parable, but especially, I'll repeat this, Jesus spoke this parable especially to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Consider yourself. I don't know if I'm talking to many people or maybe just one person. I don't know. But I am certain that there's someone hearing me now, watching me now, who is going through this problem. You see yourself as an extremely righteous person. You see yourself better than others. You don't say this to anyone, but you think you are better than others. You compliment yourself because of your discipline, because of your qualities. You see yourself as a good person, and maybe you're very good on what you do, and you tend to look down on others, who you consider them to be inferior, not as good or not as righteous as you. And because of the righteousness you believe you have, you easily get upset with people who wrong you or wrong others. You get hurt. You become angry. You hold a grudge. And you accumulate this, and bitterness starts to accumulate and growing in you. In your history, if you look at your history, you have, as I just spoke, you can't keep a job. You leave people who once hurt you. You leave bad-mouthing the company, the place. When you go to church, it's the same thing. You start well, and soon the church is no longer good for you. The pastor is not good. People are not good. Wherever you go, you burn some bridges. Have you ever asked yourself if maybe the fire is in you, the gunpowder is in you? Think about it. I don't say this to accuse you. Neither Jesus spoke this parable to step on those who are like this, but to wake them up, to give them a chance. Because if you humble yourself and understand that nobody is righteous before God's eyes, nobody is perfect, and just as you need forgiveness, mercy, and humbleness, people around you are not different. If you understand this, who knows? You'll be more free, lighter, and you'll no longer live this life of always running from a place because the place was not good enough for you, those people were not good enough for you, and only you who is good and right. Who knows? You wake up to this and you stop becoming this person, and in the end, God Himself will exalt you. If today's video helped you and you know someone that could benefit from it, share it with them, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you may do so now. See you later.